Hi, this is level 1 of your pelvic floor and core connection exercises. The purpose of these exercises are, as the name says, get you connected to your pelvic floor muscles and to your deep abdominal muscles, which is what's commonly known as your core. Now, in normal, healthy, functioning circumstances, these muscles will tend to work together so that when the pelvic floor muscles draw up and in, the deep abdominals will engage slightly as well. But if you're on this program, chances are your pelvic floor isn't working that well, and that means that often the deep abdominals aren't naturally coordinating with the pelvic floor. So we need to, first of all, get in touch with and start to strengthen each of those muscles separately, and then learn to combine them together, because that's how they work optimally. First of all, the pelvic floor muscles. Now, your pelvic floor is like a sling or a hammock of muscle running from your pubic bone at the front through onto your tailbone at the back, between the legs. Now, it has a role in supporting the internal organs, which is like a slight lifting action, but parts of the muscle also wrap around the openings to provide like a closing action. Like your mouth is a sphincter type muscle, a closing muscle, then the same thing happens around the back passage and the front passages. So when we're thinking about our pelvic floor muscles, we need to think about combining those two motions together. So it's a closing around the passages and a drawing in. Just like what your mouth would do if you were to suck on a thick shake straw. You would purse your lips around the straw and then draw in to try and get the thick shake coming up the straw. Now, often when people are starting to do their pelvic floor exercises, they are using a lot of other muscles to try and help them. So we don't want to be lifting our shoulders. We don't want to be lifting our ribs. We don't want to be sucking in the muscles of the abdomen right underneath the rib cage there. We don't want to be tightening our backside muscles, and we don't want to be tightening our inner thighs. So we're trying to just visualize that area between the legs around the openings, okay? So the technique that I will get you to work on, you can do in whatever position you feel comfortable feeling these muscles. So you might prefer lying down to start with, because there's no gravity effect when you're trying to pull the muscles in, or you may find sitting is more comfortable. Upright standing positions tend to be a little bit more challenging. So I usually suggest, if you're just starting out, lying down or sitting. As you get the hang of the exercises though, you want to start getting into a more upright position fairly quickly, because that's where the muscles work most functionally. So before we start to think about the pelvic floor muscles, I always get people to take a couple of nice big breaths in to make sure you've relaxed that area first. If there's some tension being held in the tummy or the pelvic floor, the muscle won't work well. So we need to make sure that it's relaxed before you start your contracting exercises. So you're going to take a nice breath in, and as you do that, you want to imagine that your lungs are filling, and as they fill, the diaphragm pushes down into the tummy. So the tummy's going to relax, the bottom of the ribs will expand, and just like a coffee plunger then, your pelvic floor will relax slightly. What you don't want when you take your breath in is to be going, okay? Shoulders should stay where they are. Breath in, relaxing the belly, relaxing the pelvic floor, and then let the air out. And I usually get people to do a couple of those just to make sure that everything's relaxed. After you've let your air out then, you can start to think about that pelvic floor muscle. So we want to imagine that we're starting to close and draw in around the back passage. I tend to start with the back passage for people. So unless you've been told otherwise by your physiotherapist, this is what I would probably suggest. The reason being, a lot of women think about their pelvic floor muscles at the front, and they tend to forget that they come all the way around the back to their tailbone. So I like to start by thinking about the back passage. Like you're stopping wind, stopping a poo, but you're not clenching your backside cheeks, okay? You're just drawing in and up around the anus itself. I would start with that. Now the goal is to try and hold it as long as you can, up to 10 seconds. So at the start, you might only be able to hold it for a couple of seconds, and then you feel like there's nothing there to let go of. You should feel that there's something to let go of at the end. So if you're held for 5 seconds and then you go to let go and there's nothing there, I would try only holding for a couple of seconds next time. Now, it's not a huge movement you're going to feel, so you need to tune in to what you're feeling as you do it so that you can check whether there's anything to let go of at the end. Now, if you're getting good at that feeling around the back passage, you can also then bring it through to the front if you like, imagining you closing and drawing in around the front passages. But I would always tend to start with the back to make sure you've got that part of the muscle engaged. So we're going to hold for up to 10 seconds. Now, whatever that number is personal to you right now in your circumstance. So you might be able to hold for 5 seconds. That might be your number. You might be 2 seconds, you might be 8 seconds. Whatever it is, keep a track of it, and so you can see yourself improving over time. When you've done your hold for however many seconds you can, you're then going to relax for at least that amount of time, if not slightly more. And during that relaxation time, I want you to think about some nice relaxed breaths coming down into that area to relax those muscles again. Once you've let the air out, you're then going to draw in and up again, starting at the back passage, bringing it through to the front if you want to, and holding again for whatever number you can. Now you're going to repeat that up to 10 times. So ultimately our goal for this section is to be able to hold for 10 seconds and do 10 in a row. So whatever position you're in, that is your goal for the moment, okay? Don't panic if you can only hold for a couple of seconds and do 4 or 5 in a row. You will get better the more you practice, okay? If you're really weak, I do recommend trying to do this twice a day if you can, all right? Just so that you can really get cracking on moving forward with those muscles.